Did you know that it's possible to access your superannuation before retirement to address mental health issues? That's right. If you're dealing with a severe emotional crisis or a debilitating psychological condition, the Australian government provides a legal option for you to use your retirement funds to cover treatment costs. But how exactly does this work? What types of mental health issues qualify for this access? And most importantly, how can you ensure you're doing this the right way? In this video, we'll break down the full process of accessing your superannuation in cases of mental health issues. Stay tuned until the end, as we'll not only explain what's possible, but also go into detail on how to avoid any financial and legal surprises when using your super for this purpose. Mental health conditions that justify accessing your super. Imagine being at a point in your life where everything feels like an enormous burden. Your mind is overwhelmed, stress is taking over, and mental health is no longer something you can ignore. For many Australians, mental health conditions like severe depression or anxiety disorders can be obstacles that prevent them from returning to work or even carrying out daily activities. But did you know that you can access your superannuation to help cover medical treatments during these crisis moments? In the Australian system, accessing your super early isn't straightforward and requires that the person is facing a truly serious and disabling condition. So the question is, what mental health conditions allow this access? Let's take a deeper look at some situations that might qualify. Australian authorities allow the use of early superannuation when an individual is diagnosed with a mental health condition that severely impacts their ability to work and quality of life. Some of the most common conditions include severe depression. Depression can be debilitating, especially when it's a severe clinical case that affects daily routines. If you're experiencing deep depression where everyday tasks like getting out of bed or interacting with others become a major struggle, it may be possible to access your super for more effective treatments. Generalized anxiety disorder, GAD. If anxiety symptoms are so intense that they prevent the individual from maintaining a job or living normally, this could also be considered a condition that justifies access to your super. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. For those who have experienced significant trauma, such as war experiences or abuse, PTSD can be a huge barrier to returning to work or maintaining an active social life. In these cases, accessing super can help fund long-term treatments like therapy and rehabilitation. How does the legislation apply to each condition? Here in Australia, for someone to access their superannuation to pay for mental health treatments, they need to meet certain criteria established by legislation. It's not enough to simply say you're feeling unwell or experiencing anxiety symptoms. To have your access approved, you must provide solid evidence that the condition is severe enough to impact your daily activities and work capacity. Typically, the process starts with a detailed medical assessment by a mental health professional. This includes medical reports that describe how the condition affects the person's life. If the assessment is convincing and the doctor can confirm that the clinical condition truly prevents the individual from working or leading a normal life, the application to access the super may be accepted. The great benefit of understanding these conditions is that it can help you or someone you know determine whether accessing the super for proper treatment is an option. The most important thing is that you don't have to go through this journey alone. The Australian government has resources and laws in place to support those suffering from severe mental health conditions. And, with the right documentation and proper medical assessment, it's possible to use your super effectively to take the first step towards recovery. So, if you're wondering whether your condition qualifies, the answer is that it might, but only with the right documentation and guidance. Don't give up on seeking help. Your mental health is a priority, and super can be a powerful tool in this process. How does the early superannuation access process work for mental health treatments? Now that you know which mental health conditions can allow access to your superannuation, it's time to understand the how of this journey. The process of accessing super for mental health treatment might seem a bit complicated at first, but don't worry. We'll guide you through each step so you understand how it works and feel more confident along the way. Step 1. Check if your condition qualifies. First and foremost, it's essential to ensure that you actually qualify to access your super. As mentioned earlier, the condition must be severe enough to impact your ability to work or perform daily activities. But how do you know if your condition qualifies? The first thing you should do is seek medical help. This means consulting a psychiatrist, psychologist, or another mental health professional to assess the severity of your condition. The medical diagnosis will be key to the process, so it's vital that the assessment is done seriously and professionally. The mental health professional managing your case will need to provide a detailed report in which they will describe how your mental health is impacting your ability to function day to day. This report is one of the essential documents you will need to begin the application process. Step 2. Completing the application with your Superfund. Once you have the necessary medical support, it's time to start the process with your Superfund. Most Australian superfunds have a specific process for early access in cases of mental health, but generally, the first step will be to complete a formal application. Here are some of the documents you will likely need to include in your application. Detailed medical report. This document is essential, as we've explained. Without it, there's no way to proceed. Application form. Your Superfund will have a specific form for you to request early access to your funds. This will typically include details about your condition, how much you wish to withdraw, and the treatment you intend to pay for. Proof of income and financial situation. Some funds may request information about your current financial situation, such as bank statements or proof of income, to ensure that early access to your super is the most appropriate option for your case. Once all the documents are gathered, you can submit your application directly to your Superfund. The process can be done online, which makes communication quicker and more efficient. Step 3. Approving the application. What to expect? Now comes the part that can cause some anxiety. Waiting for approval. Once you submit your application, your Superfund will review all the documents and assess whether you meet the necessary criteria for early access. What will be evaluated here is the severity of your condition and the justification for withdrawing from your super. This assessment process can take a few weeks, so it's important to be aware that you will need patience. During this time, the Superfund may contact you to request additional documentation, such as a second medical opinion or supplementary information. Don't panic. This is normal and part of the careful review process. In some cases, you may also be asked to attend additional interviews with Superfund professionals to ensure that your condition truly meets the legal criteria for super access. This doesn't mean your application will be rejected. It's simply a way to verify that all the information is in order. Step 4. Approved. What's next? If your application is approved, the good news is that you can start using your superannuation to pay for the necessary treatments. Now that the funds are available, you have the freedom to choose the appropriate treatment for your condition, whether it's psychological therapy, psychiatric consultations, medications, or even more intensive rehabilitation programs. This amount can be withdrawn directly for payment of medical services, meaning your retirement fund is being used to help you recover from a mental health crisis, allowing you to focus on your health without the added financial stress. Important! The amount withdrawn from your super may vary depending on the required treatment, and you won't always be able to withdraw the full available balance. Each Superfund has its own rules on how much can be withdrawn for mental health cases. Additionally, the amount withdrawn will be deducted from your super in the long term, which could affect your retirement savings in the future. Therefore, it's essential to be aware of all the financial implications of this decision. The process of accessing your super for mental health treatment might seem complex, but with the right knowledge and necessary documents, you can make this path clearer and less daunting. The key to ensuring you go through this process successfully is preparation. This means being well informed about the requirements and ensuring that you have all the appropriate documentation. When you do this, you can be confident that you are using the available resources to take care of your mental health in the best possible way. Impact on your super balance and retirement. Now that we've covered how the early access process to superannuation for mental health treatments works, it's time to address a crucial point. What are the legal and tax implications of this process? While super can be a powerful tool for addressing mental health issues, it's important to understand how this withdrawal may affect your financial situation, both in the short and long term. First, let's talk about the long-term impact. When you access your super early, the amount withdrawn is money that will no longer be available when you reach retirement. This means that, while using super might offer immediate relief for mental health treatment, it can significantly reduce the amount available for your future retirement. Seems straightforward, right? The earlier you withdraw, the less you'll have left for the future. And this can have a big impact on your purchasing power when you retire. For example, imagine you've withdrawn a large portion of your super for mental health treatments, but when retirement comes, you realize that the remaining amount won't be enough to maintain the lifestyle you had planned. This doesn't mean that accessing your super isn't a good solution in emergency situations, but it's important to weigh the consequences. Ideally, you should understand the long-term impact of this decision, and if possible, explore alternatives to avoid dipping into your super. Tax implications. What you need to know. Now, let's discuss the tax implications of this withdrawal. When you take money out of your super early to pay for mental health treatments, there are a few important considerations. Tax on the withdrawal. The good news is that in many cases, there are no extra taxes on the amount withdrawn, as long as you are accessing the super to cover a serious health condition, such as mental health. However, the amount withdrawn may be taxed based on the type of super fund and the tax rules in place at the time of the application. In some cases, if you withdraw a large sum, the amount could be subject to additional taxes. Possible impact on contribution rate. Withdrawing part of your super may affect how much is deposited into your account in the future, especially if your super account is linked to compulsory employer contributions, known as the super guarantee. In other words, by making a significant withdrawal, you could have less money going into your super in the future. Tax considerations for ongoing rehabilitation or therapy. If you use your super for ongoing mental health treatments, such as long-term psychological therapy or rehabilitation programs, there may be additional tax considerations. While the initial withdrawal may be tax-free, ongoing therapy can be more complex, and the amount withdrawn for this purpose could be subject to different tax regulations. Other important legal considerations. In addition to the tax implications, there are also legal matters to be aware of. When you apply for early access to your super to address your mental health, the decision is made by an authority within your super fund. Each fund may have slightly different rules and procedures, and it's essential that you are aware of how your fund operates. Eligibility criteria. As mentioned earlier, you need to demonstrate the severity of your mental health condition. This is done through medical reports and other evidence provided by healthcare professionals. However, it's also important that you understand what happens if your application is denied. If your super fund determines that your condition isn't severe enough or doesn't qualify for early withdrawal, you can appeal the decision, but it's important to know how the appeals process works. Transparency and follow-up. Australian legislation requires that applications are handled transparently and that you have access to all information related to the process. This includes eligibility criteria, the types of documents you'll need to submit, and the reasons why an application may be rejected. This follow-up is crucial so that you fully understand what's happening with your application. Alternatives and strategies to minimize the tax impact. If you're uncomfortable with the idea of withdrawing large sums from your super, or if the tax burden on such a withdrawal seems too high, there are some alternatives worth considering. Super-linked insurance. If you have total and permanent disability, TPD insurance or income protection linked to your super fund, you may be able to access these benefits without tapping into your super balance. This type of insurance can cover part of your mental health costs and treatments without impacting your future retirement savings as much. Government programs and health assistance. Another important point is to check whether you qualify for government-funded mental health programs or other forms of social assistance. Sometimes the government offers subsidized mental health treatments, which could help you avoid having to use your super for these expenses. Understanding the legal and tax implications of accessing your super for mental health treatment isn't just about avoiding surprises down the track. It's also about making informed and careful choices for your financial well-being. Mental health is a priority, but the impact on your superannuation can resonate throughout your life. The best strategy is to weigh your options, explore alternatives, and above all, understand what you're doing before making a decision. Now that you have the information about the legal and tax implications, it's easier to make a conscious decision that aligns with your long-term goals. Don't forget, your mental health is the priority, but your financial future also deserves your attention. Now it's time for you to reflect. Superannuation is a valuable resource for your retirement, but in critical times, it can also be a solution for your immediate well-being. The key is understanding your options and making an informed decision, always considering both the short-term and long-term impacts. If you enjoyed this content and want to keep learning about superannuation, don't forget to like the video, share it with friends who also need this information, and subscribe to the channel to receive new videos straight to your feed. Oh, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. In the next videos, we'll explore some highly relevant topics for anyone managing their superannuation and financial future. Don't miss out. What happens to my superannuation if I change jobs? Can I withdraw my super to pay off my debts? See you in the next video, where we'll continue to demystify everything about superannuation.